good morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. Don't forget, you can check us out on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And with us today, we have Sam Liebman. He is a real estate professional with over 35 years of experience in finance, property management, acquisition, and development. He is also the fund manager for the Rolling Cash Opportunity Fund. And we're going to be talking today about what is happening with real estate, with rents, particularly here in South Florida, but just all over the country. So welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And can you please explain really what is going on? This has been the year of the craziest rents around the country. What, a one bedroom going for $2,000? Who's doing that?
Well, 2000 in Manhattan, it's the average rent is $5,000. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but you really have to go, demographic by demographic, because it's just a perfect storm, unfortunately. During the pandemic for the last 3 years, nobody really built anything. And there's a national shortage of affordable rental housing across the nation. When you get into the retail sector, that's a different argument. Different argument in that, the retail before the pandemic was affected by technology, the internet, which isn't going to change. And then you have what I call office building Armageddon. Because of the increase in technology, you don't have to live in a city anymore to do business with the city. And that I don't think is going to change. And that is really what I call office building Armageddon coming. And if you go to New York, where I'm familiar, and Texas, where I have a lot of my properties, it's two different worlds. In New York, they're basically saying 1%ers, rich people, real estate people, get out. We don't want you. Don't let the door hit you on the way back. Texas and Florida, on the other hand, have an invisible sign: welcome, development, business people, 1%ers, and no income tax.
Right. Well, so, I'm actually a native Texan. So where do you have your properties mainly?
In Austin, Texas, and East Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Went to school in Austin. So upset that I did not buy anything once I finished college, because now when I was there, I think it was maybe 200 to 300,000 people that lived in all of Austin. And that included surrounding areas. Like they included Pflugerville and San Marcos, as the metro. And now they are well over 1 million people there and continuing to build. The issue, and we're going to do both sides. We're going to do the rental properties for residential as well as business. But the issue, I think, with South Florida, Sam, is that we don't have any place to go here in Miramar and Fort Lauderdale. We're long, we're not wide. We have the Everglades and we have the ocean, so we can't really do much. We're building on top of each other.
Well, Florida is interesting. Years ago, we used to call that the land of no appreciation. And boy, oh, were we wrong. And you have people migrating out of New York, out of California, going to Texas and Florida. Better lifestyle, better, affordable schools, beautiful water. And again, you don't need to live in a city like New York to do business with a city. And that is just going to continue. And, Florida is very big. And we used to call it water money build.
Right. But it seems that everybody wants to move to South Florida, from the Palm Beaches down to Monroe County, which is Key West, the Keys. But, obviously we do have a very big state, and you could move to Central Florida. You can move to North Florida. You can do West. You can do all of that. But you mentioned something about, the business part of it, Sam, and that it's going to be kind of an Armageddon. Same thing happening with my radio station that I work for. We moved in, timing is horrible. We moved in August of 2019, and by March of 2020, there was no one in the building. No one, not even the jocks. So, I guess my company was paying on an empty building for almost 2.5 years.
That's right. In fact, the national occupancy rate is about 40%. That's it. And
Wow.
that's after, business owners were forcing their people to go back to work. I think it was Goldman Sachs issued a mandate, if you don't come back to work, leave. And
Right.
that's what people did. And they did a total, 180. And now they're saying, hey, we need people. Take all the time you want.
Right,
So
right.
it's just not going to go back. It's an unfortunate reality. I don't think it's ever going to go back to over 65%. And the economic ramifications of that to property owners is disastrous. You cannot pay your bills at even 65% occupancy. And remember, the owners of office buildings have been hurt by the pandemic. They weren't getting paid rent. They didn't really get PPP money.
Right.
Okay. And they had to pay the operating expenses, even though they weren't getting rent. And a lot of tenants, found it an opportunity to renegotiate their rents at lower amounts. And that turns into lower, what's called net operating income and property value. And right now, office building owners are reeling from that. And now it's going to go again when these leases are up for renewal. The guy has 30,000 square feet. A law firm's going to say, hey, we got to talk. I don't need 30,000 square feet. I only need 15,000 square feet because my employees haven't been in the office in a year, and I don't think they will.
Right.
And again, talking about all the money you need to re-retrofit that space, the new space, paying a broker's fee, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's for one tenant. And the other problem is anybody who bought an office building 4 years ago and their mortgage is up, how are they going to get a loan on a 40% occupied building? So this is why I pray I'm wrong, but I don't think so, why I'm projecting office building Armageddon, a whole new round of things. In the early 1990s and the early 2000s, I bought buildings for half of what they went. And I think the same thing is going to happen. You also need, the millennials, the younger generation want different things. They want more amenities. They want to be able to have a robot there. I mean, that's what it's going to be. Robots. It's going to be like the Jetsons coming to reality. And a lot of these, what we call the B and C buildings, they're not set up for these type of amenities that are going to come on. And a lot of people are saying, well, we'll just convert them to residential.
Right.
Well,
I was going to ask that question. Can we just, we've got all this empty office space. Can we do some residential?
Not so easy. First of all, you have something called zoning, where, you can't just build what you want. And if you have a 20-story office building and you have a tenant on the 8th floor, the 16th floor, the 20th floor, the 15th floor, you can't renovate with tenants in the building. It's very hard. And it's going to be challenges. And what comes with this economic Armageddon is the stores on the bottom that are they pay much higher rents than the office space. Now there's no people. So what's going to happen to them? This is the great unknown. And the other thing that's very important is that the operating expenses on rental apartments and office in general and retail have gone up astronomically. In Texas, my insurance went up 65% at the same time as oil and gas doubled. We can't get workers. Remember $15 an hour? Everyone, right. We need 15. I can't get people at $30 an hour. It seems that nobody wants to work. Then you have supply chain issues. So it is really a challenging time to own real estate. And of course, we have interest rates going up.
Yeah, so this is all not a winner for anybody, right, Sam? We're all losing.
In fact, in Texas, what's happening is that rents are going up because the landlords have to raise rents because the operating expenses doesn't cover the increases. But unfortunately, what it's creating is a homeless situation, because in January, we were allowed now to evict tenants. And tenants are now basically living on the streets. And the homeless property in Texas, as Manhattan, is the result of this. And that's horrible, but right. That's a reality. And the assistance money has been used up. So now in Dallas, I know we're just getting a little bit more of assistance money. So it is a really challenging, it's basically a game of survival now, and weeding through, hopefully, the next 3 or 4 years, the war in Ukraine, things will settle down, hopefully. and things will be right. But there is a major shortage of affordable housing throughout the nation, and there's a lot of reasons for it.
If you're just tuning in, thank you so very much. We are speaking with author Sam Liebman. He also is a real estate professional with over 35 years of experience in finance, property management, acquisition, and development. He is also the fund manager for the Rolling Cash Opportunity Fund. And we're talking today about really what is happening with real estate, whether that is personal real estate, homes, residential, and business. So we've covered a little bit on the business side. Now let's go to the residential, because it seemed that this year in particular, Sam, it seemed like landlords could literally do whatever they wanted to do with your rent. And case in point, my rent. He only went up $110, which I didn't think was bad. But I've been here almost 10 years. So, I thought it was great that that was all he went up. But then I have girlfriends and friends, their landlords went up $250, $500. Is there anything they could have done to make that not happen? Or is it greed? Because that's what they thought it was greed.
Well, for the last 3 years, rents were down. Rents were down tremendously. But what happened was, again, a perfect storm. Right now, even if landlords, wanted to keep rents steady, they can't, because the operating expenses went up so much at the same time. I mean, if you just look at all the variables, and I really don't want to get into politics. I don't like politics, but we have a divided country and nothing's getting done. And I just wish everybody can get together somehow and work together. I think both sides, my friends on the left, my friends on the right, don't understand each other. And they don't understand that some of the policies, they're just shooting themselves in the foot, both sides. And the people who need the help aren't getting it. In Manhattan, there are 43,000 vacant rent-stabilized apartments just being warehoused because of the change in the laws. It doesn't pay for the landlord to spend the money to renovate these units and put them back on the market. Now, with the average rent being $5,000 a month, average, don't you think 43,000 apartments put into service would help reduce that?
It would, but wow, 5,000. I mean, so you just talked about how, we can't get people to work for 15, much less $30 an hour. Where is all this money coming from? Or how are people even being able to afford that? I've been working for 30 years in radio. I can't afford $5,000 a month for, to pay on a rental.
Well, that's in Manhattan, okay?
Right.
And that's
But
different.
even in Miami now, they're getting rents, a 1-bedroom, 2,000, 2,200, a 1-bedroom. That used to be what you would pay for a house note.
It's a great point, but Florida is booming. Everybody now, Florida is turning more into a permanent place to live than a, winter, some snowbirds, we used to call them.
Right. We still do down here.
The only thing that worries me about Florida,
Mhm.
and eventually I'm going to wind up there, according to my wife.
Okay.
But what worries me is they're going to need to build infrastructure, and they're going to need more schools, more roads, more bridges. And if there's no income tax, where are they going to get the money to do that? That is a concern of mine for the future. But that being said, you're not going to stop the migration to Florida. It's the cat's out of the bag. And
Really?
remember something, let's say we said, okay, we want to be able to build more affordable housing. If you look at the economics, without a subsidy from the government in the form of a tax abatement or something like that, it's not economically feasible to charge a lower rent and pay the construction costs, especially now since everything has doubled. And that's the issue that a lot of the political people on either side don't understand. They think everyone's making a fortune. It's just not as true as that used to be.
Right. And Sam, I know with what you're saying, as far as, the cat's out of the bag and people are coming to Florida in particular, we are a service industry state, and particularly here in South Florida, in this region, people come here to vacation. Now you're saying they're coming to live here permanently. And I'm thinking of leaving because the traffic is horrible. So what you mentioned about the infrastructure, that's got to be fixed because you can't have all these people here and they don't have any place to go.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, our entertainment centers are right in our, you're in Florida, I'm in New York, and we're having a beautiful interview with no problem.
Right.
And that's not going to change. And technology is increasing exponentially. In 3 or 5 years, we're going to have 3D. We're going to feel like we're in the room together.
Right.
So that's not going to change. And, the social aspects also of how people are meeting today is going to change. It's here to stay. Artificial intelligence is coming. I'm sounding negative, but it's reality. But on the positive side, there are going to be tremendous opportunities to buy properties at bargain basement prices soon and start it all over again.
Okay. So is it going to be a crash like it was in '08, or, what is going to make that happen? And not just talking about even here because you mentioned, Dallas, Austin, New York, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, but, people are moving to, as we call it, podunk, in the middle of nowhere, and it's still costing them more money. So does it mean wherever you move, the region that you're moving, or is it just overall we're going to have a bust?
Well, that is a great question. And let me tell you the difference. In the early 90s, when I bought over 40 buildings in Manhattan in foreclosure, there was tremendous amount of supply of foreclosed buildings, no money. Nobody had any money. Same thing in 2008. A lot of foreclosures, no money. Now we have a lot of money on the sidelines called dry powder. That's what they call it, ready to pounce in. So there is a lot of money. So that will need to change. But if you buy an office building, it's going to be a great time to be an architect. Architects, when they come with these office buildings, go, what do I do? How do I change this around? How do I repurpose this vacant office building?
Right.
So architecture is going to be good, but it's going to be very challenging. And it will, Amazon can't take over everything, every shopping center, every office building, and so forth. But it will be challenging. It's happened before, where in the 80s, I remember we used to call it white elephants, big white buildings, vacant, until it was absorbed. Will the pandemic in Europe settle down where Europeans are going to be allowed into the country more? That'll help the hotels. That will help other things. We have a nationwide homeless problem that has to be and mentally impaired people that need help. And these are the important things. I always say it myself, I don't need to be the richest guy in the cemetery anymore. That's why I wrote the book, because I want to give back and help people understand the fundamentals of real estate, because it's a great profession to be in. But to answer your question, it is going to be, in my opinion, in the office and retail sector, it's going to be a bloodbath. I think rental apartments are going to still be at a premium because there's a shortage. And unless there are subsidies, they're talking about now getting rid of the subsidies. In fact, in Manhattan, one of the biggest incentives that created more affordable housing than any other program, it was a tax abatement program called 421A, which, the city didn't give the developer a check. What they did was they capped the real estate taxes for a period of time. It really was the city making an investment in the future. But a lot of the political people said, no, we don't want it. We don't want it. So what do they get? Nothing instead. And you have to let developers build and make a profit. And you have to look at the numbers and say, what makes sense? What do we do to make it good for both? And that's what we need.
Right. But do developers go to, the Columbus, Ohio's, the Ocala, Florida's, where the Marshall, Texas, which is where I'm from,
Right.
the smaller towns that, need the same help, but, maybe they don't make as much money because nobody's really moving to, Marshall, Texas.
Well, those are tertiary markets. So what happens is the value of your building is actually decreased when you moved into non-prime areas. And it's possible that it might cost you the same to build the same residential building with the amenities as it does somewhere else. So, a lot of these areas that are built up now in Florida, Manhattan, we used to say those are bad areas, right? There are
Right.
no bad areas. I remember 4 years ago talking to my friend who's buying, he bought some property in Tampa. I was saying Tampa. Now Tampa is one of the hottest places around. So there really aren't any bad areas anymore. And
Mhm.
I think you're going to need different districts and jurisdictions to understand numbers and subsidize things for the future. In other words, let the developer make money, provide some affordable housing, because that's what we need, or have the municipalities themselves to own so much land.
Mhm.
Put that to use. Let's say you have, let's say in Queens, there's a vacant big box store, an old Blockbuster, or whatever,
Right.
100,000 square feet, and it used to be a Blockbuster, and for 20 years it's vacant. Why not rezone that to 4 floors of affordable housing and use that non-productive asset? Now the developer will be able to make a profit, right?
Mhm.
The city will get more real estate tax money. You'll create jobs. You don't have a traffic. There's no NB, not in my backyard, because they already have parking lots. So they did traffic studies. There are these sites all over the country that
Yeah.
aren't being used. Why not incentivize developers to build affordable housing there? It's mind-boggling to me why it's not happening.
I mean, I know vacant Winn-Dixie's, different stores that have gone out of business. You're right, and they're just kind of sitting there. They've taken the name off of it, but it's just sitting there. So, um, if you're just tuning in, we are having a delightful conversation with Sam Liebman. He is a real estate professional, over 35 years of experience in finance, property management, acquisition, and development. We've been talking about the state of real estate. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, Sam, is about people who want to buy something. So the average American now, if they go into a bank, the interest rate has almost doubled from what it was last year. Is it even worth buying something right now?
Well, in my book, Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets, okay? One of the things I talk about is you have to buy real estate when nobody wants it. And right now, everybody wants it. So now is a great time to master and learn the fundamentals before you just jump in and buy something, because nobody knows something. My girlfriend told me he made a fortune flipping a house, or my wife tells me, my friend Joanne at Marjan, she just flipped a house and made a fortune. That's not really knowing real estate. What knowing real estate is a difference between learning how to be rich and being wealthy. And Chris Rock, who I love, said it best. He said, Shaq is rich. The guy who signs his check is wealthy.
Nothing.
And I try to focus on building wealth. And you build wealth by owning a large asset base that increases annually and over time. That's how you do it. And I think that the best thing to do is educate yourself. There are so many really good books and courses to learn the fundamentals so that you will be prepared when nobody wants it, which I think is going to be soon, how to see opportunities overlooked by others. So I think that what I'm doing right now is, as John Lennon says, sitting here watching the wheels go round and round. I am just waiting to jump in, but I am not actively buying anything right now. I have enough trouble navigating through what I got with all the problems. But there is going to be a time soon, people who are educated and knowledgeable are going to be able to do very well,
Okay.
but not right
Tell
now.
us, tell us the name of the book again and where people can get it.
Okay, it's Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets. It was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. I'm very proud of that. And you can get it on Amazon. Just Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets. And I wrote it because I think it's going to help a lot of people. Many people have come to me through the years and say, I want to get into real estate. So why don't you? I wouldn't know where to start, is the most common answer. And
Mhm.
this book gives you really a step-by-step way of how to start, which is not you're going to get rich, but master the fundamentals of multifamily so that you can build upon that. And then you're going to go look at houses, property, multifamily with a total new set of eyes.
Wow, that's amazing. And of course, people can see it right there on your shoulder, on your over your left shoulder, Harvard
Oh, yeah.
Cant. That's great. I love that, and we need to pick it up. Everybody does. So, thank you so much for talking with us today, for giving us some insight on what we can look forward to, particularly with what's happening with rents on the residential side, the business side. And so basically you were telling us right now, Sam, just kind of stay still, and then everything will kind of work itself out.
Watch the wheels go round and round and educate yourself so that you can be prepared to start becoming wealthy.
I love it. Sam Liebman, real estate professional, 35 years of experience in finance, property management, acquisition, and development. He is also the fund manager for the Rolling Cash Opportunity Fund. Thank you so much for being with us. We certainly appreciate it today, Sam. And until next time, we'll see you. Maybe we'll all own some more houses the next time I see you. How about that?
Been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching Good Morning Miramar. Until next time, I'm your host, Tamara G. See ya.